So, dear people, what's been going on out there in the world of acting and talking and being who you are? What are you noticing? Okay, Allison?
I don't think I want to talk long, but it was good to be reminded of these. And then of course, but not take things personally, coming down on myself for forgetting and not acting in alignment. But as many of us been really obsessed and troubled by what's happening in Israel and
Mm-hmm.
Palestine, whatever. And heartbroken and obsessed um and then I'm hearing this, I'm thinking, gosh, this would be such good good message right now for so many people in trying to cope and understand and maybe move forward at some point. And so I've been trying to listen and realizing that sometimes with certain people, I get into a position of hearing that they're not hearing another perspective. And then I get very impassioned and a bit, I'm realizing sometimes maybe too persuasive. And when you talked about the debate, and thinking again to go back to, I think in so much of the pain and in so much of the what's going on is, yeah, we're not acknowledging and what the other person is trying, or the other person or group or whatever is trying to say, maybe before even moving into presenting other perspectives. And I sort of noticed that happening and then backed out to actually acknowledge somebody in a Facebook sort of message. And then also try and offer another perspective, but try and sort of see, not take it personally, and try and see and hope that there was good meaning and good heart behind words that actually felt really uncompassionate. Um, that was tough. I don't know what the result is, but I think I just felt compelled to come tonight, and I just have like, I don't know if you've had this in mind, but this is just so perfect for what I think
Mm.
is needed in this moment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can consider the power of your words. And I often think in political discourse, the power to listen and to reflect is a great power. Do you really mean this? Is this what you mean? Kind of things. So to clarify that first um, can really disarm people. And sometimes people do say things that are harsh and they don't necessarily mean it exactly. They're hurting in some way, you know. So to be able to just kind of ask and to show that you're actually listening is a powerful thing.
And what's
So
so hard, I can see, is when it's not just the words, but the actions cause harm. So much has been, I just keep thinking it's like meditate, pause. Like I want to push the pause button. I wanted people to push the pause button
mhm,
and do that even when there was so much harm, and allow
right.
for mourning and grief. And it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. There's so much reactivity. There's so much trauma, you know. It's very hard, but I think you're absolutely right to push the pause, to slow things down, um, so that the better sides of us can come forward. So thank you, Allison. Thank you for bringing this up because I'm sure you're not the only one that is really having these thoughts and consider how you'd like to use your words in this situation. All right. Anyone else? Hi there. Hi.
Hi, Mark. Yeah,
I
I've been thinking about things. I recently started doing a landmark seminar, and one of the things that we're looking at is those underlying commitments that we don't realize in our life that
mhm,
drive us, and
mhm,
that got me thinking about doing your best. And I come from a place where of perfection, where I try to be perfect in my life, and that does not lead to any successful outcome at all.
mhm.
Uh, and it's sort of like, well, what is my best? I don't know what my best is if I'm striving for perfection.
You're always falling short if you're striving for perfection, right?
That's correct, you know.
Yeah.
But this is something that it's underground. It's been underground for such a long time, and when I realized it, it goes, oh yeah, well, what is my best? I don't know what my best is because I think I'm mixing it up with all that stuff of trying to be perfect.
Mhm.
Coming from a place of, well, that's not good enough, that's not good enough. And so, what is good enough, So that's what I'm trying to sort out now. For what, for whatever worth that is. Um, um, what else can I say about that?
I mean, it would seem like the sign that you're kind of getting what you are aiming for is to be satisfied with your work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be the telltale sign if you're actually satisfied with a piece of work. And to watch the perfectionist, the critic in you,
Critic. Yes.
who's constantly robbing you of the satisfaction with your work by telling you it's not good enough or you could have done this differently.
Right. Yes. Well, I'll keep an eye on that critic.
Yeah. And keep an eye on just taking satisfaction. If that, let that step forward as a kind of a consciousness of take satisfaction in what you do, moment to moment. I don't know what it is you're doing. Let's say you're doing a bit of carpentry, I know
Yeah.
that you
Right.
do that sort of thing. Um, do you ever let yourself be satisfied with something that you've done?
Oh yes.
Good.
Carpentry can do that.
Yeah.
Acupuncture is a whole different thing.
Ah, yes.
When you're dealing with human behavior and you're dealing with a process of helping people, it can be quite frustrating.
It can be, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, it's sort of like, what are the benchmarks? What are the benchmarks of being satisfied in a human relationship when things are so imperfect?
Right. And what does doing your best look like in a human
And
relationship?
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that depends on someone being satisfied, or if someone is not satisfied with what I do,
Yeah.
then what that's taking it personally,
It
I guess.
is exactly. That would be taking it personally. If you do your best as an acupuncturist and somebody else is unhappy with you, don't take it personally. Try it
Well,
out.
sure. And what if I'm dissatisfied with what I do and
Hmm.
they are basing that on how I react
Could
to
be. Yeah. Yeah.
that whole thing?
Right.
Well, Yeah, it's just interesting to try to unravel all of that stuff in our life. And I guess it doesn't matter how old we are. We continue to look and say, okay, this is my work. This is what I need to do, is take some satisfaction in the things that I can accomplish.
Yeah. And let it be okay to be just as good at what you do as you are.
All right.
Which often will mean that not everybody gets better.
That's right.
I'm in a similar sort of profession that way. Not everybody gets better.
No.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right, Jim. Trying to think if there's anything really to say about perfectionism. I mean, I think perfectionism is very much about shame. It's about avoiding the feeling of shame somehow, or the belief that you can avoid the feeling of shame by doing things perfectly. And it never quite lets you settle down to what feels really good is I am as good as I am. I am as good as I am. Truth is, you don't actually know how good you are, even at writing or acupuncture, because there's always a moment when you just let yourself be as good as you are. And in this case, she writes a novel that's a bestseller, But there's something about just letting yourself be no better, no worse than who you are. And to get there, you have to face the shame. You have to face something inside you that believes that being perfect is going to save you from the shame that's inside you. It never will. It never works. Even if even if you have a bestseller novel, I guarantee you can have a bestseller novel and it not solve the problem of shame inside of you. Whatever you think is hopelessly flawed, whatever you think is incompetent, can only be solved by turning toward it. Only be solved by you meeting yourself with love. So I think it comes back to the first agreement about the power of the word. Like, what are you telling yourself? What does the perfectionist say inside? And is it true? Is it true? Maybe that's not the right word. Is it true? Maybe, is it kind? Is it loving? Because we can convince ourselves of all sorts of things are true when they're judgments against ourselves. And somewhere inside, and I think this is really almost universal from what I've seen as a therapist, is there's some place inside where we think we're unlovable. And out of that arises things like perfectionism. So you might, think about what would loving myself writing be? What would that actually be? Some of the most powerful writing, I heard some really powerful writing at my writing group recently, and the person who was presenting wrote just an amazing kind of passage about her childhood. I won't go into it. Where she made a horrible mistake, but she like puts you right in her mind of why she made that mistake. And it was potentially so fraught with shame, but she went right toward it and made it intelligible. She filled it with light. She filled this horrible mistake with light. And everybody was moved by it. So what am I saying? Turn towards the place in you that feels unlovable. Turn towards the place in you that feels ashamed. Find a way to talk. Use the power of your words lovingly. Yasmin, and then Allison.
Yeah, I really identify with the perfectionism piece, but at some point I began to realize it was like not going to make me happy. I thought, if I could just be this perfect, whatever, that somehow it would make me happy. And so at various points of my life, it keeps emerging, but it's like constantly talking to myself and teaching myself this isn't going to make me happy. And life is messy and it's not ever perfect. Nothing's perfect. There is no perfect. And so one of the things that's really, I think, a different way of looking at it that, and I practice yoga and we read the ancient texts, and one of the things that kind of is in a few places is, do the action, do like your best effort, but let go of the result.
Well, thank you. Yes, that's a really good thing to bring in here.
Egoistic to think that you're going to create some result because there's so much out of your control. And so it really helps to kind of separate. You can do your best, try your hardest, make your best effort. And whatever happens, whatever the result is, it is what it is. And it's kind of related to I always think the suffering comes from expectation. An expectation of perfection is a ridiculous thing. So it lets me let go of having some expectation from what I'm doing. But it's a constant reminder and talking to myself about this and remembering this because it keeps coming up in various ways. So I just thought I'd put it out there that it's a different way of looking at and dealing with perfectionism.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful. You do have to keep reminding yourself. You have to unmask the delusion because there's such a temptation to believe that trying to get it perfect is a solution to something that will make you happy. You keep having to unmask that over and over again. And that is the nature of delusion. It's like it keeps coming back. And thank you too for bringing in the teaching of letting go of results. Do the action with all the integrity you can bring to it, and let go of the results because you're not actually in control of whether you succeed or fail in many regards, and whether someone else will respond to your initiative or not. So oftentimes we speak to someone and we expect that it will automatically produce the result we want, and reality keeps reminding us that's not the case. So thank you. Those are both really helpful. All right, everyone. Have a good week.